Everyone, welcome. Hi, welcome to the Gig Harbor Lodging Tax Advisory Committee meeting. It is Thursday, June 8th at 12:04. I'm going to turn it over to Katrina or Tiffany for the roll call. Sorry, I don't have a list of the names in front of me, so I appreciate some help.
Tiffany, could you do the roll call, please?
Absolutely. Beth Dorset,
Present.
Sue Brayton. Okay,
She
Janae.
is here. She is here.
Oh.
I don't think we could hear her.
Oh, shoot. Okay, thank you. Janae Mitten,
Present.
James Carr,
I am here.
Patsy Irwin,
Here.
Stephanie Lyle,
Here.
Marion Botson. I hear Lindsay Stover
Here.
and Carrie Ann Eckberg is excused.
All right, thanks, Tiffany. Can we get a approval of the minutes? Everybody's good with the last meeting for March 9th?
I approve the minutes from last time.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I
Aye, all right. We can move into public comment. I'm not sure if we have any participants online, but now would be the time. Tiffany, do we have any hands raised?
I don't see any, no.
Okay. All right, so we'll go into business items. So I think Katrina, you might be running us through this, but this is the review of application for Gig Harbor Chamber of Commerce to conduct direct marketing organization services for tourism in the city of Gig Harbor. And we have a suggested motion. Move to recommend funding of a lodging tax grant to Gig Harbor Chamber of Commerce in the amount of $275,650 in 2023 and $500,000 in 2024, with a reduction of the lodging tax grant to the city of Gig Harbor from $975,000 to $700,000 in 2023. Katrina, will you go into more detail and, of course, take more questions as they come from the committee?
Of course, and I will note that Marion Batson is here as well. So as we're going through the application, if LTAC members have questions, Marion will be able to answer those for us. The suggested motion that Councilmember Dorset read is the request. Currently, as you have been made aware, the city has made the decision to no longer provide destination marketing organization or DMO services, and we put out the request for applications for to take over the DMO, and we received one application from the Gig Harbor Chamber of Commerce that was attached in the packet, and I believe you all have copies of the contract. The intent of this and the motion that was provided, and I apologize, I am going to do my best today. Josh is on a well-deserved vacation. He called me from the ocean walking his dog, so do my best. So essentially, whatever the LTAC recommends to give to the chamber for this year will be reduced from the city allocation that was previously approved. With that, I will note that the city is not going to come near our request for this year as our services have been down. The finance department will be putting together for your August meeting a detailed breakdown of what was spent on what and how much remaining that will be for 2023, with the assumption that the LTAC would recommend the $275,650 for 2023. There would be no budget adjustment required as far as the formal budget, because we would just remove the funds that were going to the city and instead provide them to the chamber to finalize the remainder of the 5 months of 2023. We are assuming right now for budget for 2024 that there would be 824,000 to go around for next year. So I wanted to provide that to you. That number will increase because the city is not going to again come close to our request for this year. So it likely will be over $1 million that will be available for granting next year, but it will not be less than 824,000. And I provide that information because the request for 2024 from the Chamber for DMO services is $500,000. So if you were to recommend that from the 824,000, that would leave about 324,000 for the LTAC to recommend for other agencies, events, things of that nature. I will also note that in July, we will be putting out an announcement for the 2024 LTAC grant applications that we will then compile. With that will be a full report to the LTAC of previous, sorry, you're gonna see my emails pop up. I apologize. Those that are in the room. Our finance department and our city clerk are working on a full reporting of what recipients are required to provide, how many people they brought to Gig Harbor, how much they spent, things of that nature. We fully understand that had not been done in the past, and we intend to have that complete report to you again with assistance of the finance department, so that you'll have all of that information when you meet in August to review the applications for 2024.
Any way we can get that earlier before, it's a lot to start reviewing applications without having seen what, I can't imagine we could do that in one. I'm just asking, because I've been asking for 4 years now for
You
that,
have.
so
You have
just
to,
curious.
did those online hear the question?
Oh,
Okay,
yeah,
great. James, did you hear that?
I just was
yeah.
asking if we could see it before.
We moved the owl closer to you, so I think it's
Well,
helpful.
Sue, to your request, to be honest, I mean, we are not required, unless a grantee finishes their project and submits their final report before December 31st, the actual date is December 31st in the contract. So
I
if you
understand. We went through this with Josh, so I
Right.
said, see the years before, because I've never seen one from the city. We've never seen one from I mean, I'm sure you've turned them in. I know permission to start agreements turned them in. Some people have turned them in. Josh said they just nothing's been done with them. So let's see 22's at year end, then if that was the requirement. But I thought I saw somewhere that they were due at the end of a project, but wouldn't that make sense? Turn it in at the end of the project?
Yes, those that have for events,
project, yeah.
I believe they have a certain amount of time, but for places where you're giving it for a full year, that would be at the end of the year that those are due. I will tell you that Josh is having trouble getting the 22 data, but it is in the works.
Okay,
And we are going to try to give as much information prior to the August meeting as we can, and anything that we have from 2023, we will certainly provide.
because surely the city would have theirs, right? I mean, you guys should have from 22 and,
Right, I
Yeah.
believe so. I'll check with him.
okay, thank you.
As you know, and we talked about this before, some of this was not done previously, which is part of why we started the discussion about whether or not this should live within our organization. And I do apologize for the lack of the information to the committee.
I'll
I think
just
we wanna
add,
see- we want to see a confirmation, that these funds are being used as planned for. And also, I think to see what kind of impact as we see people coming back and applying for grants again, I think it only strengthens their story and it's a requirement. So we're not just giving it away. I think, the other thing that we talked about too is having, a scoring system for these things when we allocate the funds that is uniform, that we're all following the same process. This has been asked for, I think, every meeting since I've been on here. So getting that in advance and an opportunity to provide some feedback, I think it'll just really help us be aligned and probably not to just speed things up, but I think it'll give us more clarity when we determine these things off of what's very different applications.
We have a draft scoring criteria that we're working on. I don't know if the full committee would like to meet and talk about that in July prior to August, or if there should be a subcommittee.
Or could you send it out? We give feedback, perhaps? No?
Yes, we could do that. I think it would be better, more transparent for the group to meet together and talk about.
Sure.
it or a subcommittee of the LTAC.
I'd be happy to. be a
Okay.
part.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd
I think
like
we
to be
invite
part of it.
everybody, and not if everybody can't make it, no problem. You can still provide, feedback in an email then or something to the group, but
That's a great point, though. Thank you for bringing that up because we are working to have that for this year's grant rounds.
And Katrina, I don't know if you've seen the one for Port Angeles, but they have a good scoring criteria on their lodging tax application site. And it's for both, there's two different ones, one for events and one for operations. And they're very similar, but I think there's some key questions that differ those two applications that make it a little bit easier to assess them.
Thank you. Had you previously submitted that to Josh?
Probably, but I can always send it again if necessary. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
And I think I mocked up one, based on the Pierce County one. My son is on that committee and sent that to Josh and I think Laura at the time. So I think we have that too.
Great. There were a couple of templates that he was working from, so if
Okay.
it's likely both of those.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll check with
Take the
him.
best from each one. Mhm.
So Councilmember Storsett, I would recommend that we would move on to LTAC questions of the application received.
Yeah.
Unless people are ready for a motion.
No.
Stephanie, did you have a question?
Yes, I do.
You
Um,
did.
So I'm just curious, I'm looking through the application, it's very nicely put together. But in looking at the budgets and whatnot, if our general allocation in a given year is approximately $1 million, this is half of that entire fund. So I'm just curious, what is the chamber's complete budget and what percentage of this request is part of, what does that represent for the chamber's entire budget? Or is this for the, are you understanding my question? So, and Mary, I mean, you probably get it. It's like, this project is this budget, but what part of the chamber's overall budget does this represent?
So this budget is going to, the way we're gonna handle these funds is in a separate line item, and it will be added as a line item on the budget, so that everything that we spend, everything that, because we want to do an accounting at the end of this as well, so that we know how much have we spent,
Mhm.
because we want to be good stewards of these funds. And so we're planning on having a line item on the budget, which adds to this, and we will be taking, percentages out for, staff percentage, whatever it is that we're purchasing or doing, or in providing, we will take that from these funds. And it won't be intermingled. Well, I mean, it will be in our bank account, but within our budget, we're gonna have that completely separate so that we can do a good solid accounting at the end of the year. Cause in my mind, this is something that it's a contract. And so contracts can come and go. So I don't want our organization to be dependent upon these funds should that disappear. Anybody that we hire to help with this, they will be advised that this is these are contract monies that should they go away,
Or whatever, yeah.
your position will also go away. So, there's full transparency with anybody we bring in as well. So it's kind of, does that answer your question, Stephanie? So it's not that this is gonna go towards, our golf tournament or anything like that. It's gonna have a separate accounting piece to it.
Right. I totally understand that. And I absolutely trust your transparency and stewardship of the funds. What my bigger question is, for example, is the chamber budget $1 million and this represents 50% of that? Or is and I realize it's its own separate thing, but it's part of the bigger budget.
Yeah, so our current budget as it sits is just shy of 500,000.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
without this.
Right, right. Okay. So it looks like there would be additional staffing hired for this. Is that the plan?
Yes,
Mhm. Yeah, because the biggest line items are obviously the eat, drink, explore guides, the visitor guide and staffing.
yeah.
So can I ask on this year's visitors guide, how did that work? Because did the city then allocate funds for that? And
Yes,
but did you not pay for it? We paid for it or?
There were, so we paid for what we were planning on covering. This added additional quantity to the mix. It added additional pages to the mix. And so we had a dollar value on it that we gave to the city for this consolidation effort.
Okay,
And so we know what, just historically, what we have paid for out of this. And so the average of what it would typically be, for this year, it was less than 60,000, but we also reduced it rather than a distribution of 50,000 printing. We printed, I want to say around 35 because we were partway through the year.
okay,
If that makes sense.
because normally it's gonna come out earlier or?
Yes.
Yeah.
It
and
ideally,
I had a similar question. I think I know where you're going, where it says 60,000 for visitors guide. And I said, well, we already did it. But then Josh said, well, this is for. They want to pay for it this year so that the visitors guide would be ready earlier next year.
yes. So typically, when we put this magazine out, it goes to print in December so that
Okay.
it's available in January. So we get a full calendar year with the magazine. So that didn't happen this year. We were on track until we started conversations for that to occur, but then that moved into some additional.
Okay.
Councilmember Storsa has a question.
Yes, thanks. One thing I just wanted to ask for is that the chamber does a report out to us when we have these LTAC meetings on the progress. This is a large fund. It's similar to how the city used to report out, with the data, what we're seeing. We heard Carrie Ann speak, too, with kind of what they're thinking as far as, how the Waterfront Alliance would go. But I think this is, I think it'd be really beneficial for us to see this one as it goes along, especially knowing how it's impacting overnight stays, things like that. What is the target? What's the timeline? Are we meeting those things? That'd be very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I fully support that. One of the pieces of technology we're going to get is the Datafy software. The city had an account, and so fortunately, Datafy has not erased any of that, so we still have some of that historical data that we'll be able to tap into. So that's the good news. And so we'll basically be picking up where we left off and then just be activating it and then adding any additional reports that we want run for any events that we create. There are started a couple of conversations already with some people that are event planners. And so trying to bring like an off-peak season conference or something to our area that would, I think, be very helpful for lodging as well as tourism in general to the community. So having some of those conversations and looking at some kind of an experience that can include downtown and uptown. And if there were other fun experiences in Gig Harbor North, we would include them too. But I'm not sure anybody wants to go to Costco or Target, for an event. I mean, we would welcome that if there's something that makes sense to include. So that's kind of where some of our thoughts in terms of some of the spend for this.
One of the items that we didn't necessarily discuss transferring over would be the partnership with Pierce Transit for the trolley So as of now, the city, are anticipating to retain that. We do have them committing to 2024. They are revamping their trolleys for ADA compliance, and they expect that they will be able to be utilized next year. And so if that occurs, if we're able to sustain that partnership, we may come forward with an application for LTAC for $40,000 for a fare buy down, but that would be something that we would plan to do unless Miriam believes that she can work it in with this, so.
So are we not paying for any of this year's trolley, the LTAC, when I say we?
No, Pierce Transit did not allow us that opportunity.
So they're just wrapping the bus 100.
They're wrapping the buses, running them Thursdays and Saturdays for farmers market, and then for Saturdays, because it's a busy time, and we'll be getting information out about that today. One other thing I wanted to let the committee know is that if this is to go through, the city fully intends to participate in transferring over. Miriam mentioned Datafy, our partnership with that. We don't intend to hoard anything. We want to allow them, give them everything that they would need to succeed that we can provide. So that includes relationships, draft contracts, all of those things, so that they're not starting from scratch and they have that information, also to include some photos and things like that, so that the look and feel will be able to stay the same as well.
Because you'll handle the website, you'll handle all the social media, or yeah.
And we have, one of our staffers has requested that should this go through, he would like to do the marketing for, the city. And if you've met Matt, he's very creative, loves data, loves data. And so from a marketing position, I think that would bode very well, because he's fairly new to the community. And so he himself feels like he's kind of a tourist and learning about the community and finding all these fun things to do here, and has a lot of really good energy about, the community. And so I think he would do very well in that kind of position.
I just have a couple other things, because in the past, we not paid for the visitor's guide. Honestly, it's been, paid for through advertising. So is that a possibility, or are you in a contract with your whoever your person is, your publisher or whatever, whoever does your,
Yeah, so we self-publish.
okay.
So we hire an editor and designer,
Mhm,
and we do sell ads for that.
mhm,
But honestly, it only covers what we have done in the past for the chamber.
mhm.
And to bring in the additional volume for it, would not be sustainable for us.
Mhm.
So we would need to have funds from the city. And I don't know.
Well, we could
Katrina,
also go
was it-
back to the two, where if like media would take it on again, and there's not a cost, would you be open to doing a visitor's guide and the profile? So, right, so,
we could completely do that as well.
okay. I'm
And
just,
I don't know for the city, because I know we've gotten such positive comments about merging the two
Mhm,
together.
mhm.
And so I don't know, Katrina, in terms of the funds that were used by the city for, that portion of the visitor guide, what bucket did that come out of?
It was LTAC
It
funds.
was LTAP funds. Okay.
And we had some sponsorships that we turned over to the chamber to reduce the cost.
Mhm, mhm.
So that does help offset it, but it doesn't do it in its entirety,
Mhm.
because the additional cost to us was, and that was just like cost.
Well, sure, and it was all
It's
last
rare.
minute. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
and that was kind of a big thing. I don't know why. For some reason, there was some rip there about using Julie. I don't know. Anyway, but they did a great job, and it was done, and they were distributing it, and, and then it just kind of, anyway, so just a possibility of looking at that. I can't see spending $60,000 if they can do it for us at not a cost, right? Yeah. That's what's been done in the past. So just that kind of stuff, and to make sure. And again, and I know it wasn't her fault, but anything, there, that we have a visitor's guide with no lodging pages, you know, where to stay. And then, that's a big beef.
Yeah, that was a big.
And I get it. I'm just
oversight.
saying, going forward, anything, and Katrina, we can add this to the notes or something, staff, anything that we as a, I always say we as an LTAC fund contribute should say overnight lodging available, any event, anything we sponsor, every rec card. I think, you know, if we're gonna contribute to it, should offer that, you know, overnight lodging, you know, how can we encourage people to stay? You know, not just, hey, come for the art festival, but, you know, special rates or whatever, you know, we can, and I know Miriam's very open to that. And I'm not criticizing anybody. It's just, there's been so many misses that I'm like, okay. And then my only other thought was getting the visitor center staffed, pay some people, we have the money, use some of our funds to hire somebody that mans the visitor center on those weekends or the hours that people aren't open, like the chamber's not open and the other visitor center, you know, there's certain days they're not open. So there's always someone
And
there.
that is part of this. And
Yeah,
I've had the discussion with Matt, should he take this role on, it's like, part of this will be weekend work.
okay,
So that we have somebody, you know, as, it's not gonna be 24/7 clearly, but
No.
it's gonna be,
no,
you know, 360, you know, 'cause I mean, there's holidays.
yeah,
And just by having a ring camera at the office, I know that some holidays we have seen people
yeah,
at the visitor center. 4th of July is one.
yeah,
Christmas, Thanksgiving, it never
No.
goes off, so.
no, but
Yeah,
those,
that's-
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And we have to work. We're all still working and, you know, so if.
But I agree
But
with you. I
people are
think
out and
on the
about,
weekends.
and so, yeah, we just pay them time and a half, and I mean, I hire a lot of kids, and they love to work, and they're very excited, they've lived here all their life, and they can
They love
promote,
to show it off.
yeah, so just, that would be a great thought on one part, let's use some of that money in that way, and then we used to give them tours of the properties in different areas, so they knew what they were talking about when they're telling people where to go or where to stay. You wanna be on the water? Well, we'll go here. You wanna be right downtown? Go here. You want a pool? We'll go, you know what I'm saying? So they know what's going on. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Miriam, can you tell me the difference between, just so for my personal education, in the budget, there's tourism professional service. How is that different than the staff that would be hired?
There is going to be, some of the things that we're gonna be working on, I believe that, I didn't bring my, didn't bring the detail on that. I
Okay.
believe that some of the professional services. Is part of some of the, like the software. That gives us some of that background data, as well as, ad placement. So there are some organizations that will help us place ads, whether it's, digital, on air, those kind of things. So there are some professional services in there for some of the campaigns that we'll be running for different events.
Got it. Okay. And then, and I'm sorry to nitpick, I'm not really trying to be that person, but I'm just trying to get clarity. So on the discrepancy in price for like the Eat, Drink, Explore guides, is that really just a numbers game in terms of, you produced, say, 10,000 this year and 20,000 next year or something? Or what's that?
Yeah, so there, we figure we could take on one of them this year and do the other two next year.
Hmm.
So we would need to figure out of the three, and maybe there are more. And what, for those who I haven't met with, there's smaller books like this that take on, you know, like different concepts. So there's something that you can take from where you're staying or from a chamber or off, you know, from a visitor center and take with you to show you all of the possibilities for where to, you know, eat and stay and explore, those kind of things. So our thought was to do something very similar to that, where we could have pieces like this done for all of the lodging locations. We figured we could do one this year and then do the next two in 2024. So if that makes sense. Does that answer your question, Stephanie?
And those would go besides the hotels, the visitor centers, the.
STRs, it would go, you know, everywhere that we could put it. We would also have a digital version that gets put on the Visit Gig Harbor WA website. And so, the whole look, the look for the entire campaign would have a very similar appearance on the website, so that it would just easily transition into the digital version of this and let them know where to find a paper copy of it once they arrive. Because this one, from what like Shalane was saying, the beauty of this, it fits very handy into a glove box in a car. It also fits in a purse pretty nicely, or a backpack. So it's, you know, that kind of an experience.
Lindsay, you have a question?
Yeah, this is a really big grant, and to my knowledge, it might be the largest outside grant other than the city funds through the LTAC. And so I'm just wondering, is this going to be structured as a reimbursement grant? And if so, is the chamber in the position to be able to kind of cover those costs up front for something this large? Because I know that, you know, right now that reimbursements from the city can take up to upwards of 3 months to get back. And so that's a lot of cost for the chamber to take on upfront. It might be more of a Josh question, so sorry.
I am not aware.
We would
So I'll have to
prefer
get
it
back.
not to be we would prefer it not to be a reimburse type of thing, or we could just invoice you for a flat rate each month. Just because there will be some hard costs for staffing and whatnot to do that.
It's a small detail word out here.
I know, I figured we could
It's a good question.
have that
Yeah.
conversation, because I have that same question, Lindsay.
It is a good question, you know, because we only build our LTAC fund when we spend something, or when we have folks working here, we build salaries. And so the remaining part of it stayed in our funds, accruing interest and all the things. And so I'll need to talk with finance and our city attorney about how we can structure that. The one concern that I could see is if we give the full amount, then there's no real way for us to, if you don't do a portion of the work, to
To hold back.
go back and reclaim that money.
I personally, I see it as like a monthly
Invoice.
invoice or a monthly payout, something along that line. With kind of like a flat rate potentially. Because there could be months that we, you know, especially up front with the upfront for some of the equipment that we're intending to get, there will be it'll be front loaded with some of those expenses. If that makes sense, because we want to get the Datafy contract in place right away. There might be some website redesign work that needs to happen, so we'll have a higher output or higher expense, I should say, if we can.
And then can I just ask a question? Do you envision this a one-person job?
No.
To start with 2 people?
Too.
Okay, because I'm looking at the salary and I know the city, we talked about that with Mimi, you know, we had to pay a lot of this. When you work for the city, there's benefits and all that stuff. So there's a lot of additional costs versus, I mean, do you know what I'm saying? Benefits that the chamber doesn't offer. So that you feel comfortable.
But
with-
now we will have this staffing quantity to be able to get benefits. So that'll
okay.
be something that'll be adding into the chamber side of the budget as well, to be able to offer that rather than just a stipend, which
Okay,
is what we currently do for benefits.
okay. Is it
But this is probably gonna be about 2.5.
170.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's gonna be about 2.5. Because there's gonna be we're gonna wanna have some part-time people for weekends, to do that, and volunteers are very challenging to find right now.
They are, well, you find them if they stay. 'Cause
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just,
Yeah, gotcha.
we're not their highest priority,
Mhm.
so, and a lot of them travel,
Yeah, exactly. So,
so.
okay.
If I could just really quickly finish my thought on the reimbursement, not for right now, but I think maybe at our July meeting, we could talk more about the nature of reimbursement grants and just talk a little bit about that because it really is a burden on organizations. And there are ways that other organizations do it to kind of mitigate like the city's if projects aren't completed, there are still contracts and things like that. So not to talk about now, but I'd love to just get on record that I'd love to add that to our discussion if we're going to be talking about the applications and the scoring, and then maybe just the structure of the reimbursements for the upcoming year.
Because, I mean, I'll just add that I know that a lot of grant organizations ask if you have the resources to cover the cost before reimbursement is dispersed. And it's a big deal. So I think that's important to consider. I know this year we are able to bill multiple times throughout the course of the LTAC grant if you need to do that. So that has helped a bit, but it is, if we don't have the resources to pay for that stuff up front, then we can't submit for the reimbursement. So it's important.
Thank you, Lindsay and Stephanie. We will look into that and have that discussion.
All right,
I have
well,
to say, I'm a little bit shocked that you say 3 months. That's not typical for us. So maybe we can talk after this. So subject. Thank you.
like, there's been some, good discussion, great questions on this. Feel like we can probably get to a motion spot at this point, if, at least from what I'm sensing. We'll entertain it.
Seth, can I just say, because I haven't seen how we spent, how the cities spent the funds before, I can't say, oh, this looks great, last year, and we typically always had that to see, and maybe you've seen it, have you, or how did you do this budget?
I did this budget based off of some of the information that the city was able to share with me in terms of how they were breaking things down.
Okay.
So, and then I took some things that were very specific, like some of the guides
Mhm.
that we're planning on making and added those as line items, just to be, completely transparent on, here are some of the deliverables
Mhm.
that we're looking at bringing,
Mhm.
besides, off-peak events, so
Mhm.
there's those that's how I put this together.
Do we feel like, we talked about having a meeting in July for reviewing like our application process and scoring. Should we move this item to then so we can get a little bit more information? Everybody like that?
I guess I would, I'm just not real comfortable, because if we vote today, this would be a done deal, right? We're not waiting to vote on this with the other applications, right? This would be,
going for now. If I know that we're asking for both years, it would be very nice to have the 2023 be able to go forward now, because as we've mentioned, the city is not really conducting any further. I mean, we are committed to doing the Summer Sounds concert and continue to work with the trolley and holiday displays and those things. But as far as some of the other expectations that you would have of the DMO advertising and all of that stuff, it is severely lacking right now. And so that is another opportunity if you wanted to approve the 2023, and then we can have further discussion about 2024 once you see what the city has spent. I don't know, Miriam, how that would affect you, but I think
yeah,
that could be a good option.
yeah.
And then we can bring back some more of the information about the reimbursable grant and all that.
Yeah, because I think that would be a very helpful conversation just from our part too. To have that,
Before you, yeah, exactly.
because we want to know what we're getting into as well. I mean, we're game for it because this has such a strong economic impact on the community, and that's what the chamber is driven on is economic benefit to the community. So, so it's definitely fitting within our mission. Because if it wasn't, then it would be a wrong
And
conversation.
it really is back to where it started. So when we first formed the LTAC, it was a little desk in the chamber office. Yeah, was that Marie Sullivan? How far back does she go? You remember Marie
I
Sullivan?
don't remember her.
Okay, anyway, I can't remember if she was the chamber or the person. I was thinking about that the other day. That's exactly how it all started. I'm not sure when the city took it over, so,
It's an interesting history that I've learned.
uh-huh.
But it was one of the things that the mayor and I considered going to council recommending this is,
Mhm.
you know, the chamber, we feel, is more, able to provide the level of service and the types of things that the LTAC desires for these funds. And so that was why we made that recommendation. Because we heard you that we have not been performing, and perhaps it's because of we are a city and it's
Well,
more,
it
you know,
was
and various.
good when the right people were there too, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, so it takes the right person too. So, do I need to make a motion,
Yes.
on that then? I would just like to make a motion that we vote only on the 2023 right now, going forward, that we would approve that. That enough of a
Mhm.
statement?
I'll
Does that
second.
include the reduction of lodging tax grant from the
Yes.
975? Okay. Just
Well,
so-
that's what we would ask, because we want to reduce our ask to give it to the chamber.
Yes, okay. Just want to make sure we're getting the whole motion, I guess, in
Yes.
there.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second,
Seth, Councilmember Storside, you should call for.
Oh, yes, sorry. When I heard you say calling for a second, I thought you were going with it, Katrina.
Sorry,
yes,
I was, and I
All
realized
those in
it's not my
favor say aye.
Aye.
I,
Those opposed,
Hey.
Right.
Good
motion
job.
passes. Okay.
We really appreciate everybody coming on today at lunchtime. And it looks like we have some things to report back, so let me just quickly go through my notes. We're gonna consider moving the meetings away from Thursday, so Carrie Ann can come. We're gonna continue to work on the reporting from 2022 and what we have for 23. At the July meeting, we're gonna talk about scoring criteria and what Lindsay brought up about reimbursement, timeframe, and some of those ideas.
And we'll see some reporting. Maybe, did you say that? I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah, okay.
Yep, and then I'll also be able to report back on the type of contract that we'll be able to offer, whether it's reimbursement or invoicing or whatnot, what those options are, so that. And I know we all trust Miriam, you know, but we do, again, we need to have those.
I want full
safeguards in.
transparency on this one
This is a
because
lot,
it's like,
yeah.
it's a lot and it's so.
Yeah. So those are the notes that I have on things that we're gonna report back on. Is there anything else that I missed?
I have a random question, time for that. The city used to have a, camera that, that was live feed.
Mm.
That, I've asked in the past, it had gone out. And then when they checked back on it, I guess it was, they were switching providers or whatever it was. But, and I actually just got an email from Shannon O'Donnell, who is, Como for Weather. She likes to spotlight Gig Harbor on her segments, but we don't have that feed anymore.
Okay,
So if we could look into getting that back up somehow,
certainly.
and when we do, then I can let her know, so then we can get spotlighted again when she likes to spotlight.
Yes, I will report back on that.
Good, because you brought that up before. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
We were switching it from not an IT professional, but like cable to wireless.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's where, but I thought it was back up, so I will definitely check on that.
Well, speaking of, so who updates the digital sign down there? Because that will now be their responsibility. I mean, once you take over
Digital sign.
in the, right by the.
Mhm, by the
The bathrooms. Did you even know it's in there?
A digital sign over by the restrooms.
Oh, it's huge.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that
It's
what we
like a
have?
kiosk type thing that you can click and.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Yeah, and I just know it was out for a long time and I kept bugging people about it and they finally fixed it, but I just wondering, would that be in their profile as well, or is that city? I don't know.
Marion and I will talk about that.
Yeah.
It's great, you can touch
I
it, like places to eat, there's probably, I mean, who's updating it? Is it
perfect.
like, because is there things on there that aren't here anymore, or, you know, who's updating it? Because I don't know if it's been updated for a while, yeah.
Because you would think that would be a natural extension of the website.
And maybe it is,
Or maybe
I just
I wonder
don't
if
know, I don't know, it's not terrible, we don't.
We'll get
know.
in touch about that.
Yeah.
I know that.
Oh, you didn't know it's there?
No, I
Oh, it's
didn't know
really,
it was there.
it's really a great sign.
I had
remember
forgotten it
seeing
was
it
there
this
until the kid, when I used the restroom, I was like, oh yeah.
It tells
Yeah, I
the
think-
temperature and
that's
the,
when
it
I
tells
saw it,
the-
it's
I'm
like-
always at the restroom apparently, I see it all the time.
Oh, I think stuff dropped off.
Oh, you probably had to go, is it 1 o'clock?
And Tiffany, is that Councilmember Storsett on the attendee side on his cell phone?
I don't think so. I thought that popped in before he left, unless he's just listening in now.
Okay, can you put him over for a second and we'll see if that's him?
Sure. Well, I can allow to talk. Let's invite him to talk.
So I just, while we're waiting, I'm just gonna add in that I'm gonna send a link to the Washington State reporting for LTAC. So all the data that grantees submit and that municipalities submit into a centralized database for the state is available online. Just for example, statewide municipalities reported $51 million awarded through LTAC grants, 58 million attendees, and 11.9 million paid lodging nights. So some of that data is out there. It may not be the most current. It looks like 2021 is the most current year that's available, but it's helpful. So I'll send that to everybody so that you have that link as well, and can look by different municipalities and that sort of thing. So
Yeah, and I think when I asked Josh about that, because that's a requirement for the city but it's just a summary, it's not any detail. That's what he told me anyway. Yeah. I could go.
but this way you can see at least what is being reported. So the kind of detail that you're after might not actually be in it, but it might be. So I haven't dug too deep yet, but I'll send that link, and it's kind of
Thank you.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tiffany, that is Councilmember Storsett.
Okay, I can't make a phone a panelist, so he should be able to talk if he needs to. I've given him permission.
Or not.
Tiffany.
Hey, can you guys hear me now?
Mhm.
Okay, gosh, sorry. I had to switch to my phone because I had to get on my way to another meeting. So apologize for dropping off the camera, but
That's okay. I think we're ready to adjourn. Unless there's any other questions.
I just want to say, Marianne, I don't know if she came and talked to you, but she came and talked to me, asked questions. I just appreciate you just wanting to know our opinion. So that was very, thank you.
Yeah, it was very beneficial. I had meetings with several from, I know Lindsay and Stephanie and James and yourself to kind of get some idea of history. Because I wanted to have kind of that perspective rolling into this. We do deliver, I'm the mindset of, promise and then, so that's what our goal is. And so it's a big deal for the city we love. So,
Yeah, we appreciate it. Just wanted to say that. Thank you.
thank you for saying that.
Agreed. Great.
Sarah, are you there?
all right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Oh, I'll make that motion. Sure.
I'll second.
Second, all those in favor?
Bye.
All right. All right. Thanks, everybody. All right. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
I thought that one was coming.